Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and that makes this the first ever episode 24 of Cloud Control. Back again, once again, here on our Saturday afternoon, Kate. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. I will try to stay as focused as possible. My cat is so determined that we're going to play some fetch in the house with his new favorite toy, the lid off of a container of pills, which obviously is better than all of the real toys I've bought him. And we've been having a great afternoon over here.
It's like, that's like, it calls back to our previous conversation about you get a new game back in the day and the first thing you want to do is read the instruction book. It's like, the point is to play with the game, but really what we're entertained by is the instruction booklet. Like, Neville just loves lids, what can you say?
Neville he loves a good lid. Like, something to be said about a man who can appreciate a good lid.
Yeah, well, Clementine is, she loves toilet paper tubes. She's my hedgehog, for those that don't know. So, she's got a really wild interest in some inanimate objects as well.
It would have been great if you didn't clarify who that was. It was like, I'm pretty sure that's got to be a pet as well. Like, maybe, just Clementine in the other room,
Just, it should have left some mystery for the
today,
listeners.
and she's home from work today. She's playing with her toilet paper tubes. Everything's good.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Well, let's talk about some video games here today, because as everyone knows, that is what we're here for. And we got a very Nintendo focused show today. So I'm excited for that because I think we often talk the least about Nintendo overall. So today we thought we would start off by doing a tier list of some of the, 20 of the more popular Nintendo franchises. So we're going to tier those up to start the show. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about the Bloodborne Card Game, which we played together last weekend. Tons of fun. And then I'm going to talk about Eastward because finally, I feel like I've been talking about Eastward on the show, like I'm about to beat it for at least a couple months. And I finally done it, everybody. So we'll talk about that at the end.
Good. You might as well call it at this point tease word because of how much you've been teasing us with it. Wow, I lost confidence quickly on that pun.
Sometimes we make some pretty good jokes. I don't know about that one being the best, but I will say I appreciate your effort. And with that, everybody, we will get into the tier list. So what we have here is a list of 20 Nintendo franchises and a tier list down from A down to D, or S down to D, sorry. And I think the way we're going to do this is just go one by one and talk about each one, see where it goes. So with that, Kate, Animal Crossing. That's a very interesting one to start with.
Yeah. This is immediately I run into the problem I always have with these kind of things where it's like, how do you compare certain games? But I think Animal Crossing has gotta be pretty high up there, especially with how much everybody played the newest Switch release.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Animal Crossing as well, it has a lot of entries in it at this point. And I mean, even if you don't play it a lot. Back in the day, we played so much on the GameCube as well. And I think it's just such a charming little game that I think we could put it in B or A right now and maybe compare it as we go.
I think I probably put it in A. I think the thing about Animal Crossing is the one kind of its strength is also its weakness in the sense of they don't really change. The games are so incredibly similar to each other. They added crafting, which was good in the newest one, but they didn't add a lot of. They also took away some features about sharing towns and stuff. So I feel their biggest strength is that they're so consistent. Exactly what you want out of an Animal Crossing game is what you're gonna get out of an Animal Crossing game 10 out of 10 times. So it is the biggest strength, but it's also their weakness in the fact that there really isn't much iteration. It doesn't really grow. It just is I want to relax and have a nice cozy little world with my animal friends.
Yeah. And it's so weird too, because I know what you're saying, and the games they're simple, right? And it's kind of one of those exceptions where you and I often talk about we don't like to make a lot of our own fun in games. We like to be given a bit of direction. Animal Crossing is such an exception to that rule in the fact that sure, you're given direction, you need to pay your house off, but really you can do whatever you want and make that look like whatever you are you interested in designing your town? Are you going to do errands for the people? Or are you just going to strictly collect your rocks off the beach and like do what you want.
Yeah.
Like it's really free form.
I think it, like, not to get on like a weird Animal Crossing tangent, but I think like what made it interesting to me as opposed to something like Minecraft is that like you are really restricted, like in terms of like you can't just like do anything you want with your house at any time. Like you go to the shop, there's like 4 things in the shop to buy each day, and so you like it's exciting to keep going back and seeing like, oh, what's going to be in the shop today, like a live service game in that way, like before like that would like daily quest for a thing, right? Like you'd go back and it would keep changing, and so like it gave you incentive to continue to play, whereas a lot of the like Be Creative games, like you're just given a sandbox and told go. But for some reason having those like real-time elements made it a lot more engaging, and like because you go to the store like, oh, nothing good today, I'll come back tomorrow, and then you go to the store the next day like, oh my deck chair, like I need it.
Yeah, and to that point too, like it was cool how the day and nights are actually like days and nights in real life as the games have gotten newer. I don't know if that's always been the case. I feel like it actually has. But it's cool because you actually have to wait like tomorrow in the game is actually the next day, and so you're really like making it a part of that routine. Like it is quite unique like that.
I think every single one of them has functioned on that cycle, and like obviously you could like change the internal clock and cheese it, but like I do remember being like, oh, it's late at night and like, okay, everyone's gone to bed, like I have to stop playing because there's nothing left for me to do, or like maybe like, okay, I'll just go like collect shells one more time because that's what's available. And like
I remember going and collecting a bunch of shells off the beach, and then because you couldn't sell because the store would shut as well, so I would just drop them all on the ground in my house, and then the next day I would like go pick them all up and sell them when the store was open.
That's true. But
awesome.
I think it was really creative, the idea, and they've maintained quality, and I would say like I think A tier is perfectly reasonable.
This is just warming our ranking skills up for next week. That's all I can just an aside. Okay,
That's
next
right.
franchise we have here, Duck Hunt. Now Duck Hunt is a very interesting one because it really is like so tiny. Like I think it has to be D, right? Like it's one like, game and a character in Smash Bros.
It's weird to call it a franchise. Like I guess technically anything is a franchise, but it is like doesn't have the pedigree that some of these other like entrants do have. Oh, you just really don't like Duck Hunt, huh?
I mean, it's fine. The light gun is actually really cool. Like I remember back in the day playing that on the NES, and we had like the gun, and I remember you could cheese that by like just holding it directly up to the TV and you could never miss. But I mean, for as fun as this game is, I just don't see how it's gonna be any higher than D with literally one game on the NES and a character in Smash Bros.
Yeah, you almost think like, why was this game not on the Wii? Like, what amazing Duck Hunt potential.
or on the DS too, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I want to say like, I feel like D's harsh, but at the same time, like I feel like we gotta put something in D, and I don't know what else it's gonna be. So like, chuck Duck Hunt in there.
I think it's gotta be for now, just based on the limited, amount of content. But we'll see. We can always change it. Okay, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is a good ass franchise for Nintendo, and I think I like it more than Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I think that's fair because like it's got a lot more variety, but it still maintains the quality. Like I can think of only one Donkey Kong game I don't like, and I can think of many that are fantastic.
Which one don't you like?
Donkey Kong 64. I know a lot of people like that game, but I thought that game was terrible.
You think people like it? I think that isn't that game like universally thought of as being a critical piece of shit.
I thought people love that game.
No, I'm pretty sure people think it sucks. I don't know.
Maybe I'm not a contrarian, but that game sucks.
But listen, Tropical Freeze and like those newer games, Donkey Kong Returns, Donkey Kong, I think that's called, right? Donkey Kong Country Returns. Those were awesome. I remember playing on the Super Nintendo back in the day. We used to play like the original Donkey Kong Country, hard as nails, and we could never get very far as kids, but like fun stuff to go back to. And then you get into like Donkey Konga and his appearances in like Mario Party. He's been a mainstay. It's just an iconic character, and I think he's one of the best.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought up Donkey Konga because that is winning a lot of points for the DK franchise. Like DK music is so good. Like obviously the Donkey Konga stuff. Like you have all the stuff in the Donkey Kong Country games. Like they have amazing music. They're awesome. Like I would even say
DK
potentially
rap?
like the DK. Exactly. Like if you like all of the faces he makes in Smash Bros. Like he's just such a fun character. Diddy Kong Racing was dope,
That's
and that's
I think Donkey
included
Kong's got to be
here.
an S tier franchise here.
I think Donkey Kong is an S tier, and I honestly think Donkey Kong, thinking about it now, is underutilized in the Nintendo like library right now.
Totally. Well, I think Donkey Kong is like such a specific, like Nintendo has so many platformers, right? Like they kind of have like the Mario style, and then they have the, more Metroidvania style. But Donkey Kong is really like it's more similar to Mario, but it's like a harder scale of like more intense challenge, I think. And I really like that about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I'm sitting here right now thinking like, do I have to go back and play Donkey Kong Country? Like, I don't feel that about Animal Crossing, their franchise, but I feel that about Donkey Kong Country right now. So, like, yeah, I think that's an S tier.
Not a bad call. All right, let's go to Earthbound, which is next up. And that is a very curious case. Now, have you played Earthbound? Because I've played like half of it.
I played Undertale, which I know is heavily inspired, and I love Undertale, but I was hoping that you would be able to feel this one.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, Earthbound is... Well, Ness and Lucas are great in Smash. Let's just say that. But I mean, that holds lower. I feel like the Smash inclusion is like not as important as other things. But Earthbound itself, like it was a great game, and I'm really disappointed that I sort of stopped playing it. I think I had it on an emulator, and then sometimes you just don't feel like sitting at the computer, and it's a long game, and I just kind of fell off. And then by the time it's the style of game where when you haven't played for a while, you forget the story, what's going on. It's hard to just pick it back up. But it's a cool RPG, and it's one of those that I think does hold up in the context of current day, just with like the way that it distributes experience, and some of the mechanics are like really ahead of its time. Although I will say like the inventory is like a total joke and a mess. Like it's just awful to manage that. So it definitely is like dated in certain ways, but at the same time, just such a charming like slice of life. Like little towns and these intimate little stories, and I think it's. I mean, I don't know. People love Earthbound, right? Like, I would almost put it in C, to be honest, though. Like, it's again just like one game. I know there's the other ones that are in Japan, but like, I've never even come close to playing those, and I don't know if I want to speak out of turn, having no experience playing them at all.
Yeah, that's fair. I will like go with your decision here, having like never touched the franchise, but I will say like of all of those kind of like classic RPG games, like the Golden Sun kind of era, like
Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger, yeah. Earthbound is the only one that I actively want to play, because I just don't think that style of game, like, and I just don't think they will have like aged well enough. I think like the pacing's kind of slow on those games, and I just don't find that I like will sit down and finish them. But Earthbound is the exception that I think looks interesting enough that I might get through it. But again, I've been saying that for years and I haven't. So
I know, I feel kind of the same way. But hey, as a teaser for later, though, talking about Eastward, lots of Earthbound comparisons. So we'll get to that later on. Okay, Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem is a huge franchise now that we both have a lot of thoughts about, I think. So, I mean, obviously we can talk about some of the, I guess, things we didn't like as much about the newer games, and also at the same time, just how outstanding some of those more classic ones are to us. I don't know. I love Fire Emblem overall, and I think it's probably one of my more favorite Nintendo franchises, even despite like some of the slip-ups.
Yeah, this is probably the most like divisive one for me, because I love early Fire Emblem. Like Fire Emblem up until like the like Wii, I want to say, is S tier easily.
Yeah, I even think Awakening is like S tier personally for me.
I think I'm fine with Awakening as well, but everything post Awakening, I'm really like kind of sour on, and I just really don't like the trajectory of where the series is going. So that loses at some points, but it is like it has such high highs. Like that is one of those games like I think we played like incessantly, like over and over and over again, beating like FE6. And like I went and found like English translations of games that weren't released here to play them like on an emulator. Yeah. Like I love the old Fire Emblem.
Sacred Stones as well. And I mean, personally for me, I don't even hate Three Houses. I think there's some things that are not perfect about it, but I even think that game was pretty good, and like the combat was fun. So I don't know. What do you think? High A?
Yeah, I would put it in A. I think what it is the new games aren't as bad as my opinion of them is. It's because I have such high expectations of the
Yeah.
franchise, and then it's gone in a direction that I don't enjoy as much. So I would say A. I think the pedigree of the original games, even the console ones like the Game Boy or the GameCube one and the Wii one, like I say A is probably safe, but
Okay.
like, oh, it should be an S tier, and that's sad.
I know. Well, it could be for us. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. Let's see where it lands.
Mhm.
F-Zero next. Another curious one because this is like we haven't had a game in so long.
Mhm.
Captain Falcon, obviously a complete G, and we love him. But
Mhm.
I don't know, like F-Zero GX was really fun back on the GameCube. I remember we had some F-Zero for Game Boy Advance, I think, and that was kind of fun
Yeah.
to play around with too. It was like a lot better than you would expect for F-Zero on a Game Boy.
Mhm.
So I like, for me, F-Zero could be so much higher because it's fun, but it's just I wish we had more of it.
Yeah, I agree. F-Zero is a weird one. It's kind of not as dead as Duck Hunt, but like it's pretty dead.
I mean, it hasn't
It's
had a
been
new
a
game
long
for
time.
like forever, and that just
Yeah.
highlights how dead Duck Hunt is because it's been like as long again since Duck Hunt. I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's kind of almost like looking through this is like it's such a head scratcher because it's like why like people liked F-Zero, like it had its own niche in the racing genre. It's like why not? Like Captain
It must
Falcon's
just
such
be
a cool
sales,
guy. I
I
guess
guess.
so, but like I don't know who doesn't want to be Captain Falcon. Like Falcon
Yeah,
Kick is like,
and I feel
and
like
like when
after
you
Smash Bros.
Falcon.
too, after Smash Bros. And the popularity he's gained from that, like I think there would be interest in it.
Yeah, and like I know we said Smash doesn't gain you a lot of points, but the feeling of landing a Falcon punch on someone when you finally get it, because like
Yeah,
the second you pick random and he shows up, you're like, I gotta get one. I don't care if I win the match or not. If I get one, it's a moral victory. And yeah, I would maybe say like he's like a solid B. I
you
want to
know what? I
say
was
like
gonna say the same thing. I feel like we can use F-Zero as a very interesting anchor point for this tier list of like it is the middle. It is nothing but good stuff, but there's just not enough. And it's
mhm.
like that's a great middle point, I think.
Yeah. And like what there wasn't like the most exciting thing ever. Like it was good, but it wasn't like, I'm not crying that F-Zero isn't around. I'm more just like, oh, I'm surprised because it was fun. And now I've thought about it for the first time in 10 years, right? Like,
That's right.
so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Kid Icarus. Now, have you ever played a Kid Icarus game? Because I have not.
No, I think this is maybe one of the only two franchises that neither of us have played anything of. So I say we just slot it into B and hope everyone's okay with
You know what?
that.
I was going to argue it should be lower for the same reasons as some of those other ones. Like, there's only a couple games. There's like the NES game, and then they remade like that new game on the 3DS when it first came out, like that launch title. I don't think
Mhm.
people even talk about it, but I don't know. Like, how can we rank that better than Earthbound? Earthbound is kick
Yeah,
ass.
okay. You know what? That's fair. That's fair. I think it's a C. And also, I don't really like playing Pit that much and Smash Bros.
Agreed. I
He's
remember
not
the
as good
first
of a
week.
character as Ness or Luke
I remember the first
after
week that he
Earthbound.
was in Earthbound or in Smash. I was like, "Oh man, he's so good." And then after that, I was like, "No, this guy's no good at all."
He's got that deceptive side B that seems like it's really good,
Yeah,
but it's kind of whatever.
yeah. All right, Kirby. Take it away, Kate. How do you feel about Kirby?
Well, okay, so Kirby and the Crystal Shards on the N64 was a great game. I have not played a Kirby game since, but the most recent Big Mouth Mode Kirby has really gotten me excited to play a Kirby game again. So yeah,
Yeah.
B.
Yeah. I think Kirby's a good shout for B personally. And Kirby is the
For
exact
B.
opposite of Duck Hunt in the fact that Kirby gets like 5 new games a year. Like there'll be like
Yeah.
all types of Kirby things. There's a free fighting game. There's like a just all these games that come out of nowhere. Like Kirby just multiplies. I don't know how they make all these games like all the time, but they do. And I think yeah, Kirby's in B. I mean,
maybe above
I think he's
Captain.
above this, yeah. So like the games, I haven't played too many either, but like that new one apparently was pretty cool. And what I love about Kirby is the way that they innovate with the franchise. Like they did Tilt and Tumble back on the day with like the first tilt thing on the Game Boy Color, and then they always have like mouth mode's innovative. They have like those mini games I'm talking about. They just kind of change it up, even though they're reusing the same character and all that. But it is a creative franchise, and yeah, Kirby's cool.
And I think Kirby's probably a better franchise than we're putting it, but I think part of the problem for us anyway is that like we only had the one game we played when we were kids, which we did really like, but then I think Kirby's one of the franchises that's a bit more like for kids than some of the other ones here. Like Nintendo's obviously always very like all ages, family friendly, but a lot of the Kirby games come out and they seem like just a little bit like that one little step a little bit more childish to me, which is definitely not a bad thing. Like those franchises do need to exist, but it's just not something that's ever on my radar or like anyone I know is playing them. Aside from Big Mouth Mode, which just does seem like a fun like all ages kind of game, and like you just can't like that trailer was so fucking good. Like Big Mouth Mode is what Kirby will be known for forever now.
Yeah, like, honestly, yeah. And I know what you're saying too. I agree with the Kirby thing. I think there is like conversation about like there are some challenging things in Kirby when it comes to like solving more of the puzzles and collecting stuff. But if you're just playing through the game, like it is, you can just fly over everything, right? And it's very mushy and gummy and, very big shape, big stars come out. Like you can clearly see everything. Like I agree. Like I'd rather play Donkey Kong personally. Okay, speaking of games I'd rather play than Kirby, Metroid, everybody. Oh my God. Metroid now should be so high up. The only thing holding Metroid back is the lack of games. But like Metroid Prime, killer game. Metroid Fusion, killer game. Like all the 2D Metroids pretty much are just like some of the best Metroidvanias. I know like it's in the name, right? But honestly, it's true. And I think the 3DS Metroids were not so great. Like what was that, Hunters or whatever? Like, whatever that was doesn't really need to factor in, I think. But the rest of it's all just so strong.
That like I kind of feel like I missed out on Metroid. The first Metroid game, I mean, we had like the original Metroid on the NES, and I remember playing that sometimes, but it was just really hard.
It was,
and we were
lost.
So young.
It's so hard without a map.
Like, so we just like never really played it, aside from every now and again, just for some variety. Like, oh, I'll play an hour of Metroid. Okay, I'm stuck. I'm done.
I remember one of the last times I played the original Metroid, like back being a kid. For whatever reason, I just like, because you just aimlessly wandered around, like we didn't know where anything was. I finally managed to find a boss one time, and I was like blown away that I found this, and then he proceeded to just absolutely annihilate me. Like I think it was, I don't even know what boss it was, but it was.
Thinking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I ever fought a boss, and like I couldn't, I could maybe name some based on what I would guess the Metroid boss, but I have never ever fought a boss in that game. So. Yeah, I don't have the biggest Metroid library to pull from, but I will say Metroid Dread was a great game and made me even a little bit interested in the, like, I guess if the Prime game ever comes out, which maybe it will. So I guess Metroid isn't as dead as the other ones. Like we got Dread, which was awesome and like still somewhat recent. And then the new Prime game is coming out. Allegedly. So, maybe this is kind of like the revival of Metroid in a way.
I think between Dread and the Prime remake that we just got, it for sure has been revived. And, Prime 4, who, like you said, who knows when that's coming, but they've remade a couple of the older games as well. Like I feel like it should just go behind Donkey Kong, if only for lack of games. But honestly, like I said, I think Metroid probably would be like, I don't know, ahead of it if it even had as many games as Donkey Kong, personally. Pokemon. Ooh, boy.
Oh, boy. This is a tricky one.
Now, in the essence of keeping this podcast a reasonable length, I think we really need to limit ourselves talking about this because we've gone around the Pokemon merry-go-round a few times.
We've gotten off and on at the Pokemon station many a time here.
I would argue that Pokemon is still number one for us, or at least in S, just because of the prevalence it has for us, and like the fact that we're in our, middle age years coming up and we're still collecting Pokemon cards. Like, we love that time when I was like, hey, like, let's fill out this chart of like, what's your favorite Pokemon of every type from every gen. Like, the amount of elation that brought me just to fill that chart out is just like something that's unspeakably powerful compared to so many other games. And regardless of like the quality of the newer games, like, I just think this franchise is just beyond. That's all.
That's I wanted to argue, but then I thought about, I was organizing the list of Pokemon cards I'm missing at work for like a considerable time on Friday. It has pictures, it has numbers. And that's fair. I think I think it's less of a question about like the individual games when it comes to Pokemon, although obviously that's important, and we wish they were better now. But it's more of a question of like, the legacy of the franchise, like how much it means to us, like how it has come into other aspects of our lives. Like, I will never not like see cool Pokemon fan art online and be excited about it. Like, I think it's an S tier. Like, regardless of the quality right now, it has earned so much pedigree in the past that like you gotta respect Pokemon up there.
I think like even taking the games out of it for the cards alone and like what that means to me, like just like that whole thing, it would at least be an A just for that. And like,
I think that's fair. And if there is any universe of video games that I could ever live in, it's Pokemon every single time.
Without question too.
Without question.
Last bit of aside, I actually think Arceus and the new game are pretty good for what it's worth, despite their flaws. What's the next one? Pikmin. We're getting a new Pikmin game later this year, allegedly. So that's exciting. I've never played Pikmin.
They had a direct about it. I've also never played Pikmin. I thought for some reason you had, but no.
I think I've like touched the controller at one point, like at a friend's place, while Pikmin was in the GameCube. So
right, it wasn't turned on, but you just went and touched it. You're like, that's good.
No. I've definitely watched some like footage and people playing Pikmin though, because it is a game that interests me, and I think like the new one I'm actually pretty excited for, just to see what it ends up being with the whole puzzle aspect and like collecting the Pikmin, especially after playing Tinykin earlier this year. It's got me kind of like, oh man, I could really go for a big collecting type of thing with some puzzles and cute, charming graphics. And like the Pikmin themselves are kind of an interesting little species. Like it's a cool game, but I just haven't played it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I really liked Tinykin, so that's made me more fond of the Pikmin IP. And I would say I think this is a fair, just kind of like slotted into B. No strong opinions either way. Looks cute, definitely creative and unique. Has some potential. Maybe one of us should play it at some point.
If it wasn't for the $80 price tag, I would buy it for sure. It's gonna be one of those, like, if I just feel like playing it one day, or
I feel like that's like the broken record when it comes to Nintendo.
It's so true.
If it wasn't $80, like that's me in the new Kirby game, right? Like I really wanted to play when it came out. I was like, if it wasn't $80, I would have bought it. But
I mean, that's me with a lot of games, not just Nintendo ones, to be fair. But it does seem to be more of a Nintendo problem in terms of like, there's less games that I feel that come out or like that are something I would want to spend 80 on, but whatever. Punch Out. Little Mac is a boss.
Little Mac is great. I actually love Punch Out. Like, maybe more than I should, because like we played the NES one. I've not played a single Punch Out game aside from that NES game, but I love Punch Out. I love Little Mac. Like, he's such a weird character. Like, he hardly has any kind of like dialogue or anything going on in the game, but he's just such an underdog. I love Little Mac. I really like Punch Out. Like, I don't know why I feel invested, but I'm gonna be sad if this is low on the list.
No, I like Punch Out too, and it's a cool game. I remember you talk about never being able to beat Metroid back in the day when we were playing that. I remember we used to make it like reasonably far into Punch Out. I don't know if you consider King Hippo reasonably far. No, we never beat King Hippo. I don't think.
Oh, I beat King Hippo. Absolutely.
Did you? Okay, well, I never did. You made it to Mike Tyson?
You
made it to Mike Tyson? in
Yeah,
Punch-Out?
I definitely remember fighting Mike Tyson. Maybe I didn't beat Mike Tyson, but I totally remember him in the game.
Holy shit. Okay, I did not know you made it that far. Um,
This is
yeah,
where my
Punch-Out.
love of FromSoft started. The grueling training grounds of Punch-Out.
Yes. Punch-Out's not an easy game, but it is cool. Like
No.
it's it's very rhythm based, I think, with a lot of the fights, and
Mm-hmm.
I would be happy to put it like, I feel like at the top of C again, just because
No,
like we haven't played it. There's no games. Like,
just put it in B. Placate me.
what do you
Put
think?
it in B.
All right, we can do this. We can do this if you want.
Yay! I was gonna argue A, and then you went down to C, and I was like, okay, B is a good compromise.
Yeah. I mean, we can't put it in A. We've played one game collectively.
But it's cool.
I agree.
Yeah, it's B, but like, okay, I need to play some more Punch Out, clearly.
Yeah, you should.
I have a
I
weird
really feel
thing
like
about
that
it.
could be like your Nintendo game. You'd really like, because you're good at like Wii boxing too. As an aside.
That's true. That's true. Anything about, yeah, I just love boxing games, I think is what I'm learning here. Dreamscapers, I always use the boxing gloves. I'm learning a lot about myself.
All right, Super Smash Bros. This is the one for me that could take out potentially Pokemon at the top. I don't think so, just for the reasons we said before, but I think it's got to be second.
Yeah, I have absolutely, that's exactly where I would put it. Smash Bros. Is king, always.
What can you say? And it's like legit one of the greatest games ever made. Like one of the greatest gaming franchises ever made. What more do you need to say? How about Star Fox?
I don't like Star Fox very much.
You know what I was going to say?
I don't think it's bad, but I just don't like it.
I went back and I played Star Fox 64 when the online thing came out, and I don't think I like Star Fox either. I think I like the concept of Star Fox, and like it sounds fun, but after playing something like Rogue Squadron or whatever it was, that Star Wars ship combat game, I'm like, man, this is just so dumbed down, and like Slippy's so annoying, and half the fights just end up being like when you're dueling like Star Wolf or whatever in his R-Wing, you're just like flying in a circle, chasing him around, like trying to lock on. It's not that fun. D?
That's harsh, but yeah, and then like they're not for me. Like I don't know how to be too critical because like I haven't played any of like the more recent games. I don't think they look fun. I don't like spaceship combat. I don't like the land mech stuff. Like one of the Star Fox ship is kind of one of the worst levels in Smash. It's just not got a lot going for it in terms of my personal taste.
Yeah, I think so too. And I've played a couple other Star Fox games. Like I played Star Fox Command on the 3DS, which was like a strategy game. Kind of like, it was actually kind of cool, but at the same time, like the second you get in the R-Wing, I just, like you said, I don't find it that fun. And I think Star Fox underutilizes what could be a cool set of characters in like a universe. Whatnot. I would love to see them go back to do, like, remember that GameCube game where you got out of the ship
Star
and
Fox
like,
Adventures or something?
Yeah, I would love to see a game like
game
that.
being interesting because you have all like the animal races and like the world could be kind of neat. But I just wish you spent more time doing that and less flying around in a spaceship.
And I like spaceships, but it just doesn't not fun. How about Mario? Mario
That's
is
an S tier.
S tier for sure.
Mario is like, I mean, it's above Donkey Kong. That's at least is the last place it can go. Like, I think it might actually be above Smash as well. Because here's the thing is, like, I would almost, like, you could almost say that Smash is a Mario game in a way, or, like, at least...
I was going to say it was until Smash was on the list. So for me, this would include, like, Mario Kart, Mario Party, all the Mario sports, all the Mario games, obviously.
And, like, here's the thing.
Because like, Odyssey is so
good. Like, Odyssey was amazing. Like, Super Mario 64 is, like, still to this day one of the best, like, 3D platformers. Yeah. Like,
Mario Party is always a good time.
Mario Party is, like, one of the best, like, couch, like, games to play with your buddies. Like, Mario Kart is obviously, like, super great. Like, all the sports games are fun. Like, Mario just doesn't miss.
There's a Mario movie now, which I thought was pretty fun.
There's just everything. Like, I feel like objectively, Mario is like the top of this list. Maybe for us personally, Pokemon is in that spot, but like you like who doesn't like Mario? Like he's just so consistently good and delightful.
100%. How about Splatoon? Now, you've not played Splatoon. I like Splatoon quite a lot. Very stylish, great music, fun gameplay. Wish it was split screen. Oh my god, I wish it was split screen. The single player in the first game I didn't really think was that great, although I've heard it's gotten better. I've only played... Actually, no, I'm lying. I've never even played the first Splatoon because it was on the Wii U. Splatoon 2, single player, I didn't love. Apparently the third game's a lot better, but I never picked it up because it's so similar for the online. And it's just such a new franchise, but I think it's good. I just think it hasn't been around as long as a lot of these to be set up. So I think it's like a mid B or A tier franchise, honestly.
I think I'd probably put it at the end of A. Like, I think it's just such a good idea. I think the world is really neat. Like, they add so much to it. Like, there's so much stuff to do in 3. Like, the only thing holding Splatoon back is that there is no, like, split screen. Like, if there was a split screen, I would have bought Splatoon 3, like, a long time ago. Because it just looks so inherently, like, what a fun concept for, like, an online shooter. But it's just
and
not a game I would necessarily play alone. And
it is a fun concept for an online shooter, and when I played online with friends, like it is fun. The problem is like the split screen stuff is tough, and then it's also just like after you've played a certain amount, it just gets a little repetitive, I think. Like not enough variety on the maps, and like you get used to using your one weapon, but it's like you know it just kind of gets like the variety is missing, but it's hella fun, and I love Splatoon. I'm nitpicking it. How about Wario? Now, WarioWare, obviously, and there's also the Wario Land games, which were fun. Yeah. Both of those are fun.
Both of those are fun. I love WarioWare. I love little micro minigame games. Aside from that one ski jump game that I'm bad at, but all the other ones, we always say if there was a pro scene, I would have been in it for WarioWare.
Look, we would both be retired because you would have made enough money for our whole family to like.
Oh my god! I don't know what it is about that game, but like, man, if there was one thing I was weirdly good at for no reason, it was WarioWare. But yeah, and I remember the Wario Land game being really fun too. Like I had that one on Game Boy. It had a really actually unique idea where you like did this stage, and then when you got to the end, you had to do the stage in reverse, but you then had a time limit because you were going in and like stealing a diamond or like a key or something, and then you had to get out. And so like there was actually a lot of like tension to the game of like how much you'd collect, and like there was a lot of like interesting puzzles, and like it was not an easy game, or at least it was not an easy game to be like very completionist. And like I actually think that like that series was slept on a little bit. Like they are really fun.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember we played I don't know if you played it, but I remember one time renting like Wario Land 2 or 1 on the Game Boy Pocket back then, and like playing he had like this little ram attack. It was more of like a side scroller, like a regular Mario game, but it was cool, and I really liked Wario Land 4 as well. I know there's like a GameCube one. There's more in those series that I've not played. That's one I think it'd be fun to go back and play those. But I agree, it's weird they've not made any more Wario Land games like in a modern context, because he's just such a meme character too. Like people would like it because if you make Wario and Waluigi in a game or something, it seems like easy money to me.
I would put that in an A tier, I think.
I agree.
Wario's like
I would even say it's better than
Splatoon.
Franchise. I would put it above Splatoon, to be honest.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good stuff. Like surprisingly very thoughtful, like good games out of like what is like the weirdest Nintendo character potentially of all time.
Yeah. So Xenoblade is an interesting one because this is the one you were mentioning that neither of us have played as well. I would love to play Xenoblade. I kind of wish that I had at this point because I've just heard so many great things about it as an RPG. I don't know where to put it really. I know it's got its flaws, obviously, with like the Japanese weird, sexuality stuff. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? C?
Xenoblade is a weird one for me. Like, I really don't know much of, like, the two kind of things I know about Xenoblade, like, not counting the Smash characters, is one, I think the world looks really neat. Like, I love the world design in that game. And two, the only reason I know anything about any of the characters or what happens is because I watched a really good video essay one time. I wish I could remember where it was. It was years ago. It was a really good video essay about sexism in video games, and it was like centered around Xenoblade.
Yeah.
And it was a great video essay, and like, yeah, those games are a little problematic in certain ways. So, but that being said, like, I know people love them. They're supposed to be really great RPG franchise. I just can't speak to that. So, like, maybe this is another a B tier and forget.
Could be B and forget, yeah. I'm unhappy with that too, just because I think people like it in general. It's just that how can we rank it? What do you feel about Yoshi?
Well, he's adorable, and he comes in many colors. And I love the Yoshi's Egg level in the Mario Kart 64, where it would be like question marks. You didn't know who was winning, and that was cool. Yeah, no, Yoshi's awesome. Yoshi's Story was a great franchise. Like, Yoshi's Woolly World is adorable.
What about Yoshi's Cookie? Remember that shitty DS game?
Yoshi's Cookie. Yeah, that's right, Yoshi's Cookie. I haven't actually played it, surprisingly, but I think Yoshi's like a pretty solid franchise, and I think it's also like kind of a unique platformer in the space where there are a lot of Nintendo platformers.
It's funny you say that about Yoshi, because for me, Yoshi is like Kirby 2.0 in the sort of like, they're really kind of on that lower levels, you know, what do I want to say? It's like more aimed at the younger audience, I feel, for Yoshi, in the same way as Kirby. And I actually feel like, from what I've played of both, that I prefer Kirby to Yoshi, because it's fun to get like those sort of powers and all that. Like, Yoshi is a lot more limited in his skill set, I feel, mechanically. So I don't know, like, I feel like I'm kind of with you, but I would just put him below Kirby in some slot.
I think you can just go in the B and kind of live at the end of B tier.
Yeah, let's put him above Xenoblade, at least.
Okay.
And finally, another one that I really am interested where we'll rank it is Legend of Zelda. Because this is like the epitome of people love this thing, and you and I have not played a whole ton.
I have actually played a decent amount. I didn't play a lot as a kid, so it's not a nostalgic franchise for me, but I played a decent amount, and I will say I think it's an S tier franchise. I think like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are both like S tier games. I love them, like, not even the nostalgia opinion of having played them as a kid. Like, I think they're fantastic and, like, you know, very, very like influential games. I kind of fell off the series a little bit afterwards. I think the combat interested me less, but like, just the worlds are always so colorful. Like, there's always such fun puzzles. They're like really unique. Every game is very different in terms of like the world that you're in. Like, it always gets kind of memed on, like, oh no, it's like the same like with Mario, right? Like, Ganondorf, and he steals Zelda, and like, you gotta get the Triforce and save him. But like, you have one that it's like a boat ship, like nautical, like colorful, like cartoon world. And then the next one you go to is like a deep darkness, like shadow realm kind of place. Then you got Skyward Sword that's like up in the air temples and stuff. Like, for whatever flaws or nitpicks you can make, it's a really creative franchise. And then obviously Breath of the Wild was just like the like biggest glow up on a franchise that was already good. And like Tears of the Kingdom's just coming out. It looks like it just made Breath of the Wild again, but better. Like, I think it's an S tier, even though it's maybe not my like favorite games always. And like, yeah. I know you're not as huge on them, but like, they're probably Nintendo's like highest quality games in a lot of way.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, it's one of those, like, you just can't deny it's like huge presence in the gaming space. And I mean, I've never been one to say that Zelda games are my favorite, and like, I didn't enjoy Ocarina when I played it. I'll just say, like, I think I understand, like, it's very influential for like games, and you know, there's that whole argument's completely valid, but I think it's a good candidate for like, this game isn't really that great. But that's just me, and I know it's a hot take, and I know I'm like on the wrong side of that by and through. But I will say, like, I really enjoy the 2D Zelda games from what I've played. Like, I loved Minish Cap. I played a bit of Spirit Tracks, which I thought was great. Like, Link to the Past is awesome. I really like the 2D style more. And then, like you said, the thing that about Zelda that I really love the most, I think, is just the way they're able to, like, everything takes place in Hyrule for the most part, like the same kind of setting, but it just has such a different flavor to it every single time. And the way they constantly reinvent it is a lot more impressive to me than something like Mario, which just has the same art style every time. And it's like, you know what you're getting. Whereas in Zelda, it's like, ooh, is this going to be like a creepy one? Or is there going to be, you know, more of a cartoony style? Like, that is very cool. So yeah, I mean, like, I would personally put it at the end of S if I was to be ranking it, just because I love these other two. But I think there's room for a conversation that it could be like here for our list.
That's where I would put it. I would put it after Smash, but above DK and Metroid. I think just like in an objective sense, like just the quantity and the consistent quality of the game is higher than the other two. But for my personal preference, I would put it behind Smash. So yeah, I'm very pleased with this. I think it's a good showing. Like, for as much as Nintendo kind of gets like flack a little bit in the gaming space, and like, you know, we say like, oh, they're good games, but they're not $80 worth games. But like, this is a very positive tier list overall, and like, you know,
I think so too. And I think the other thing too is like, it's just not worth $80 to us. Like, there's a lot of people that will say these games are worth it, and to them it is. And like, you can argue that it is, because a lot of times what Nintendo has that other systems don't is like, the games come out and they just work. They don't need to be patched. They don't have bugs. They don't have problems. Obviously, some of them do, like Pokemon and, you know, some of the more online ones, I guess. But by and large, you can buy pretty much any game from any one of these franchises, put it in your Switch, and it will work flawlessly. And like, that is something other companies just can't say. So like, for that reason, maybe it is worth it. Anyway, this is our tier list. So, Kate, do you want to read it out quickly just for those listening on audio?
Yeah, so I'm going to go from the bottom up, just to make it more exciting when we get to the end, instead of like, oh, Duck Hunt sucked. So to start things off, D tier, Duck Hunt sucked. Followed by Star Fox sucking just slightly less. The ship was able to outfly Duck Hunt slightly. Then we got our C tier. We've got Kid Icarus, followed by Earthbound, although in the future that might rise higher. B tier, we've got Xenoblade, Yoshi, Punch-Out, Pikmin, F-Zero, and then Kirby. And then in our A tier, just squeaking in is Splatoon, Warrior, Animal Crossing, Fire Emblem, and then the best of the best in the S tier is Metroid, Donkey Kong, Zelda, Smash Bros, Mario, and, to no big surprise, Pokemon.
And that, everyone, is the definitive list of Nintendo properties in a tier system.
It's just correct. So we did it. You know what? We didn't even like have real opinion. We just read off the correct list that does exist in one of these objective spaces. So
pretended to rank them, yeah. Oh man, hey, that was fun. Yeah, okay, well, let's move to our second topic. Change gears completely from the fun and joy of Nintendo. Let's talk a little bit about Bloodborne and the Bloodborne card game that we played last weekend. So that was really fun, and you know, it's something we've played twice before or something, but really we're pretty new to the game as well. And so I know you're a big board game person. You got a lot more of this lingo than me, so let everyone know how this game works, and then we'll talk about what we thought.
It's kind of a tough game to explain, I guess. Like, it's actually simple when you play, but like, it always is such a like task. Like, okay, I'm explaining this to you with no visual aids, and like, you just have to get it.
I mean, just high level Cole's notes, you know, like.
Yeah, but basically, it's very interesting the way that it works. Is that it is like a light deck builder, in the sense where you all start with the same starting cards, and then when you go back to the Hunter's Dream, you can buy new cards, and of course, it's all flavored really delightfully in the Bloodborne way. So like, your starting cards are like, you know, you get the Hunter's Axe, and you get like the Hunter's Pistol, and you have like Transform as an action, and then obviously everything you buy, like, okay, there's the Tonitrus, and you know, the other guns and weapons in the game, and you get like a blood vial that heals you. So it's very like well flavored. I think it's definitely something that, like, if you are a Bloodborne fan, like, playing this, regardless of what you think of the game, it is just going to kind of be fun experience, just
Yeah.
like flipping over the next card in the deck and like seeing what it is. And what's interesting about the game mechanically is that it is cooperative, competitive, which I think is kind of a tough balance to strike. And I find a lot of games don't really succeed at it despite having a good idea. But I actually think the Bloodborne one did work like pretty well in that space. So the idea is that you go through like a deck of monsters that you have to fight, where there'll be some like lower level monsters like some Yarnamites, and then you fight a few bosses. I think we fought like
We fought Rom at
we
the
fought
end. We fought
Rom.
do we fight Gascoigne? I don't think we did.
I don't think we fought Gascoigne. We fought like Martyr Ligarius, like so. There's like all the notable bosses from the game, and you go through the deck, and you have to work together to kill them because it's not possible to do it on your own. But the rewards at the end, which is kind of how you tally up who is the final winner, like for scoring, are only awarded to people who like contribute right at the end. So there's this like tactical mind game of like, we all have to help, but like if there's a way I can do it that kind of screws over like one person so that like I don't have to share the rewards, then that is sort of like the idea of the tactics, and you get some weapons that can hurt other people, and like just do some kind of like deceptive stuff, and there's an element where like you all kind of play simultaneously. So instead of reacting to what your opponent is doing, you're often like trying to predict what you think they might play. So then you're playing based off. And I think it's a fun game. I think it's a good game regardless of if it's Bloodborne, but obviously the Bloodborne elevates what I think is like a pretty good game into like a very fun game.
Yeah, I think the styling of the game is really outstanding. And like you said, my favorite part of the game was just like the competitive nature of like you're trying to work together, but you have to really one up your opponents. So we played with our dad actually, and he was a fun person to play with because he has no idea what Bloodborne is or anything. So it's fun. Like, Dad, flip this card. What do you think of this boss? He's like, I don't know. He looks kind of mean.
He actually chose Rom, which is cute. You fight like a final boss, and it's supposed to be random, but we had him pick because like he doesn't know, and he was like, "Oh, let's pick Rom," and I was like, good choice. Yeah. Very cute.
But there's a lot of situations in that game, like you were saying, where you really need to predict. And something that I think is interesting is you mentioned the transform card. And so what that one is when you play transform in this game, it lets you see what card your opponents will be playing before you can choose your own. And so there's a lot of game cards in the game that are like, if you're the only one using this type of weapon, you move first. Or if your opponent uses whatever weapon, then they'll take double damage or something like that. And so you really can get a one up if you use that card strategically. So I think that was like such a key thing to learn when to use that card and when not to. And the other card that maybe just the one more aspect of the game is going to the Hunter's Dream. So the Hunter's Dream is kind of where you are able to add cards to your deck and like refresh your deck for the cards that you've used. And you go there either when you get killed by a monster or one of your opponents, or you can choose to go there with a card in your hand, and you kind of you forfeit from attacking that turn too. So you really have to be so strategic about when you choose to go back. It's not only about attacking and what attack to use, but also about like, okay, maybe I should go to the Hunter's Dream this round because they're probably going to kill him before I'm able to attack. So I may as well replenish my cards. And then the next monster that comes up, like I'll have my full arsenal of weapons. And I think like playing through the game, you get to learn that balance. And I think if you were to play like a few more rounds of this with people that were really familiar with how the game works, there would be a lot of like strategy around that, and you'd see a lot of monsters where like everyone has the same idea, and it's like, okay, we're all gonna go back, like no one's even going to attack this monster. I think there'd be like an interesting meta that would come up around the game.
Yeah, I agree, because it is like on a deck builder, normally when you're out of cards, you just shuffle your discard pile into your hand, and then you have like your cards are now refreshed again. But in this game, you have to go to the Hunter's Dream, so like you can't run out of cards, and like if you have a card that you've already played, like it is dead to you until you go back to that dream. And then also that's how you heal, and you do not have a large health pool in this game. Like monsters can do considerable damage.
I think didn't we all get one shot by like just a regular enemy too, because it's just based on dice rolls, right? So you roll like 1 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Oh, we're dead.
Yeah, so how it works is like every monster, there's 3 different types of dice that are like get progressively worse, and you roll them, and that's how much damage they do. So it's another, I think, kind of like, it's a smart way to obfuscate the like what's going to happen in a turn, so that you can't calculate like, okay, I can take 2 damage from the monster and I'll stay in this round. There's always that element of like, oh, I could die at any second, which is very on brand, but also works for kind of like the mind game aspect of it. So yeah, I think on our first turn, I rolled a 0 on the dice. I was like, okay, good, we took no damage. That was our like expectation going into the second one. But the dice have like numbers that are flat and then numbers that are plus. And when you roll a plus, you roll it again. So you could roll a potential like infinite times. And so like the second turn, we just rolled like 2 plus, 2 plus, 2 plus, and we all just got one shot and died. So very Bloodborne. But yeah, I think that's like a key element of like, yeah, knowing when to go back to the Hunter's Dream, as well as like, am I safe? Like, because if I die, I will lose what I've like, you have to go back as well to like bank your points, essentially, in the same kind of way like you go to the dream to level up, and if you die you lose your echoes, right? So you have to bank your points. So there's an element too of like, this is a bad time for me to go to the dream. Like, maybe I don't need any cards, like maybe I definitely could kill the monster this turn, but am I gonna die first because I have no health and I need to go back to the dream to like cut my losses and like save what I have instead of like be greedy to get more? So it is a very interesting like balance. I think this game could do with some expansions, and I am remiss to say like we don't have any, and I don't know if they exist. I feel like they definitely should.
Yeah, that was going to be
So
my one critique as well, is like, as much as the strategy I think would evolve, and there is like a reasonably large amount of monsters, I think. Like, the monsters are fine, but I feel like where it could use some improvement is in like the weapons and items you could use. I think the only like non-weapon item that we could get in the store was blood vials to heal yourself, but it'd be cool to have like a pebble. Like, what could that be used for? Or like any of those other kind of tool items, you know? And then there's obviously such a large range of weapons in Bloodborne as well. Like, a lot of them are in the game, but I would love to see what other weapons could look like in a card game format. So I'm sure that there are expansions though. Like, it's so obvious, right?
yeah, I'm just looking at it now. Like, there are some expansions, which is great. Like, I think the base game is a little bit meager. I think I would say, like, obviously expansions shore up that problem, but I feel like the base game, I think it's just missing like a few like hunter cards. Like, there aren't really that many cards you can buy and that many different ways to build your deck. So there isn't really a way to be like, oh, I'm gonna try to like spec into this kind of play style. It's just more like, okay, I'll take this right now because it's the best out of my options. But like, there isn't really a way to like build up a deck synergy. So
Yeah, it's
that's
light
kind
on
of
the
like
deck building.
yeah, which I don't think it needs to be super complicated, because I think the biggest draw of the game and what you are focusing on is that like competitive cooperative, like, you know, like working with, but also like sneaking around your teammates. But I do think that it for replayability's sake, being able to have a bit more variety is important. But I mean, overall it was good. Like, I really like the game. I want to keep playing it, and not just because it's Bloodborne. Like, I know
Yeah.
it may seem that way, but I promise it's actually
Yeah.
good.
No, I'm with you too. And I think for next time it would be cool to have at least one more person, because it's 3 to 5 players. And I think with 3 people, it was definitely a lot easier to like predict when you needed to heal and sort of what attacks would be more effective, versus having 5 where like, you know, you might not even get a chance to attack some of the weaker enemies, or you know, you could get attacked by multiple people, like multiple other hunters. I think it would just be a lot more, you know, complicated with 5. So we'll have to try that at some point. But yeah, totally recommend it too. It was fun. It was fun. And speaking of fun, let me get to our last topic here, which is Eastward, the game I've been playing seemingly forever. Took a short break in the middle, but I'm back. I finished it, and I'm here to tell you it's another indie game I would definitely recommend checking out. I've had a few on the show recently. I feel like I've kind of come to the conclusion of a few I've been working on. So we're here. And so Eastward is the first game from a publisher called Pixpill, published by Chucklefish. And this is the first game, they're from Shanghai, actually, Pixpill. So I haven't played too many games from China, but that's always cool to try a new developer. It's a 2D action adventure game. It's very much like a 2D Zelda style game, which is funny. Those came up a little earlier in the show. And it draws a lot of comparison to like Undertale and Earthbound. I think more for like its sort of narrative and style as an indie game, and that's really rare air to be, compared to those two games. And I think my initial impression is that, like, I played Undertale, loved Undertale, obviously, great game. And like we talked about Earthbound a bit too. Wow, this is really a callback episode. Um, I would say that Earthbound or Eastward is probably my least favorite of the three from what I've played of Earthbound. But that's not to say it's not good. It's just those are very good games. I think it's like Undertale in the fact that it's quite quirky in its mechanics. It's got a few surprises, like the sense of humor. It's very similar in the way you like traverse the world and whatnot. And then Earthbound it just mimics Earthbound a lot in the fact that it's a slice of life and you're kind of going around to these people in these small towns and talking to them. And it's just really like small scale for a lot of who you're interacting with and what you're doing. So I really like that feeling as well. And then another parallel as well is like Earthbound, you call on the phone to save. This game, you open the fridge. And I talked about that last time, like saving in this game, outstanding stuff. You open the fridge and it gives you like this quote. Everyone is different, and you'll open the fridge and it'll give you some little line about life or a little line about something. But it's always so insightful. It's like a little fortune or like a little nice thing about your day. And, just lovely stuff. Like the one I told you last time, my favorite one is like, think of your mind as a cobweb, and all the little bits of dust going through are your memories. And every once in a while, one passes through, and that's how you forget something. And like, that's just such a beautiful little cute analogy that you just don't expect to read.
It is, yeah. Kind of thing where like, yeah, it sticks with you, right? Like you don't always expect that kind of like experience going into a game, and like it's just like a breath of fresh air, right?
Totally. And so the game itself, top-down 2D Zelda, like I said, you play as two characters named Sam and John. John is, for those watching on the video, he's the guy with like the red vest and the backpack. He's a miner, and he's like your main character basically, but he's a silent protagonist. And then the other character is Sam, who's the girl with the white hair. And you kind of find her in this cave, and she basically gets sort of adopted by John, and he starts to look after her. But she's very like rambunctious and outgoing and very spunky and, totally opposite of him. And you kind of just go around. There's a story to it. I won't talk too much about the narrative because I think it is better experienced not knowing what you're getting into. But I will say it's like quite dark, and there's a lot of like mystery and, themes about like cloning and about like genocide. Like it's very dark. I won't say much more than that, but it's got a lot of those type of themes to it, on top of like what you're actually doing on a lot of the quests and whatnot you're doing is like that slice of life stuff around people who are getting affected by these larger themes. So you're adventuring around, you're going to different locations. As you can guess by the title, you're heading east as you go. You're on this train, and every time you sort of complete an area, you get back on the train, travel to the next town, and see what's going on there. So it took about 20 hours to beat it. I would say it's probably a little longer than I would have wanted. That's maybe my one complaint with the game is like, it's a little slow at the start, and I think it leans a little bit farther into that slice of life stuff at the start without giving you too much action first. So I think it could have been maybe paced a little better in that way. But yeah, and then I guess my other two complaints would be, before I get into like more of the mechanics, is there's a couple of like odd sexual jokes. It's the same stuff we talk about for like Xenoblade and stuff, which is unfortunate. And then the other thing, which I really found to be like shocking in 2023, is they portrayed like people with disabilities in this game as just being very ugly and like dumb, and like, they're drawn with like drool coming out of their mouths, and like it's just really offensive stuff, and like, it's not funny. So I really didn't like that about this, and I think that's a huge issue with the game. Like, just be more respectful, Anyway, on to better stuff, because there's a lot to talk about here. So cooking takes place in this game. One of the biggest things you do, John, he has a frying pan, and that's like the main weapon you have. It's your melee weapon. Yes. But he's also a chef, and he's known to be a good chef in this universe. And like, he's a miner. He doesn't work as a chef, but he's a good cook. And like, everyone knows he can cook. And so what you do is you're going around, you find ingredients around the world. They can be things like dairy or seafood or meat or veggies. So you'll find like crabs and fish and lobsters and carrots. And you can put 3 things in the frying pan when you find a little cooking station. And then depending what you've mixed, you'll make a different recipe. So you can do like 3 dairies or 3 fish, or then 2 dairies and 1 fish. And all the different combinations of his ingredients all give you different dishes that do different things. So some will restore your health, some can make you stronger, etc., etc. And on top of that, then there's also like specific recipes you can make where instead of just picking 3 dairy things, if you specifically pick like 2 eggs and a something else, you'll make a strawberry cake, for example. Like so it's kind of cool to go through and like find all the different combinations and find all the different meals that will be useful to eat in different contexts.
Okay. Is it kind of like I'm picturing like the cooking in like Paper Mario, where like you can make like various like recipes based off of what you have, and then they become items? Like, is it that kind
Yes,
of idea?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You have like a separate pouch in your backpack, which is all your ingredients, and then you have like recipes, which are then the usable like consumables that you'll eat. But what I love about this game and the way they have this work for you is that this is a problem that we have in RPGs. You never want to use your items because you're like, I might need that for a later boss. But the thing is in Eastward is you find so many ingredients all the time, and you're like basically incentivized to cook like a lot of the save points. So you're never shy about eating what you've got in your backpack because it's easy to replenish the food you're cooking. So you're never worried about like eating the meals you've made, which I love because it just encourages you to engage with that mechanism, right? And you need to too, because the combat in this game, you can take some really big damage from some of the bosses and some of the hazards and whatnot. The combat itself, I think, is like the weaker part of the game in comparison to the narrative and the sort of the vibe of the game. Like it's not bad by any means, but I just don't think it's outstanding. Like you kind of have the pan, you can do your melee, and you get some different guns with John, like a flamethrower and a shotgun and whatnot. And you can level them up. And then Sam in combat, you can switch between the two of them. And she is more of like, she has some ESP kind of powers. Like she can stun guys and more of like a support character. And so like some of the enemies can be fun to play around with, but more often than not, like it just kind of turns into just use your shotgun as much as you can and just deal damage. And a lot of times, like some of the enemies were just like not that intuitive to learn how to dodge. And because you have such an availability of food, you can kind of just meat shield guys and like just shotgun them to death. There's also like an ability you get later on where you can refresh your ammo for free, so you don't really run out of that either, and you can really just make quick work of a lot of the enemies, or just even run past them when you're kind of going through a level for the second time, like backtracking, as you do need to do sometimes. I think the boss fights are fun, but overall the combat is kind of meh.
So it sounds like it's kind of one of those games that's a bit more like the sum of all its parts instead of like particular things, and like that combat is more just like to facilitate that there's some gameplay so that like it keeps it kind of fun and paced well, and then the real like meat of the game is just kind of being in the world and like experiencing it.
100%. That's how I feel about the combat. I feel as though the puzzles are better than the combat because, of course, like a Zelda has, there's also puzzles in these games. I don't think it's reinventing the wheel in terms of puzzles, but I do think the puzzles are quite strong, and the way that your abilities sort of ramp up throughout the game makes them engaging all the way through. Like the fact that you can use Sam's abilities for some and then John's for others, and then later with John you get a bomb and you can like hit the bomb across gaps with your pan, so then you can blow up a switch like, you know, across the way. It's also really interesting too because you can separate the two characters, so you can actually have them go in different paths. Sometimes there's like a tunnel that only Sam can fit through, so she's got to go one way, John's got to go the other, and then you have to do different things on each side to like sometimes protect each other or open doors, and it's pretty creative the way they separate them out. So I enjoyed the puzzles quite a bit. But yeah, I think that's they kind of cancel out with the combat puzzles, and it's just flat across the board, right? The last thing, though, which is very interesting about this game and a lovely little touch of flavor, is there's actually like a whole retro RPG built into Eastward, and it's called Earthborn. So I don't know if that's an Earthbound reference or
subtle.
what.
Yeah.
In its name, it's Earthborn, but it's actually more of a original Dragon Quest clone. And so what it is you throughout the game, one of the items you can find in the world is tokens, and you can put them in like one of those pachinko machines, and you can get like little capsules out of it. And Earthborn, those capsules are enemies from Earthborn. And Earthborn is like a franchise in the world of Eastward, so it's kind of like Pokemon, I guess, or like an RPG people play. And you can actually play it, and as you go through, you have like a set time limit basically of days, and you can go through and just walk around a map, fight some enemies. It's pretty basic, but the more times you play it, you'll get, as you collect more and more of these capsules, you unlock like more places you can go in Earthborne. And so like the game itself becomes like, it's something you can't beat at the start, but as you play through the game, you unlock more stuff, you can go further and further. And so there's a couple times, I've only played it, a couple times, but I sat down to play Eastward every once in a while, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm just gonna play Earthborne this time. I'm not even gonna progress in the game. Like I just want to play Earthborne, and it's been fun. And I think my plan is to play it one more time now that I've completed this game and have like as many capsules as I could find, just to see how far I could make it. I don't think I'll beat it. There's like a lot I didn't collect, but it's just really cool. I love when games put sort of that level of creativity into something that's totally unnecessary. It's like Yakuza, the way they have just fully fleshed mini games that could be their own standalone purchase. Like someone could have sold Earthborne for $5 on the eShop, $10 on the eShop, but instead it's like part of Eastward, and that is very cool.
Absolutely, and it makes the world like, not only is it just really fun to like kind of switch things up, right? Like sometimes you play a game and you like, you just need a little bit more variety, and so like some days you're like, okay, I want to play Eastward because it's the game I'm playing, but like playing the Earthborne is kind of more like the vibe I'm feeling, and it refreshes me to then go back to the main part of the game. But it also makes the world just feel real, because like, yeah, okay, that's like, something that the characters in the game probably like are fans of, right? Like,
yeah,
they, like it makes sense, like there would be like some kind of entertainment, whether that's like movies or games or shows or like plays or like sports, or like there's got to be something in the world that the characters in it care about. And so like it's always a really cute opportunity to like come up with something like cute and creative and fun in that space, and it just like enhances everything. And then when you finally get to play it, you're like, oh, it's always surprising and exciting. I'm like, really? Like I can play Earthborne? They've just been talking about it.
Yeah, it's totally true, and that's what I think the strength of this game is. When I go back to my final thoughts, it is totally just the vibe and the slice of life nature of the game that is its strong point. And like you said, it's just anchored in stuff like that. Like Earthborne is something that you'll just have random characters say like, oh, I love playing that game, or like, there's kids excited to play it around the world. And they tie that back in just a lot of different ways, and different things going on around the town. Like there's this radio tower that's pointed out. Obviously they're listening to music, but it never has anything to do with the game. It's just like an existing thing in the town that people talk about. It just does such a good job of making it feel like a real lived-in world, I think. And that's just why I think it's compared to Earthbound in that way. And I think why the game exceeds overall in terms of what I was expecting. I think this was a great it's a great experience, honestly. It makes you think about life a lot. It's a good game. It just isn't the most fun in those other technical, like fun to play ways, I guess I would say, like the combat wise, and like the pacing at the start is a problem. But overall, like strongly recommended. It's a good game, and glad I played. It's on Game Pass, everybody. You can play it for free.
Well, there we go. After touting Nintendo, what does it always come back to? Man, Game Pass is a good deal.
Exactly. With that, I guess that brings us to the end of the show, well, near the end of the show, and time for listener mail, which of course we do every single week. And if you'd like to be cool and write in a listener mail question for us, as our anonymous writer did this week, you can do so to CloudControlPod at proton.me, or of course get in touch with us on Twitter at CloudControlPod. All the links are down below wherever you're listening to the episode. We thank you very much. And we'd love to answer today's question from Anonymous next. Do you have it open?
That is my cue. Obviously I do. I'm always very prepared and not stalling right now. And the question is, if we could have a GameCube game that was the next to get remastered, such as Resident Evil 4 did recently, which game would we hope for most?
Lots of good choices. We were just talking about Animal Crossing. I don't think that's going to be it. We just had a new Animal Crossing. How about Donkey Konga, Kate?
Well, I would take Donkey Konga if it also got an updated track list. Not that the track list wasn't banging, because like in what other place can you go from the DK rap to Blink 182 to like
the Mighty Mighty Boss
like,
Stones?
Yeah, to then like a Japanese like power ballad. So it was fantastic. I just want more, I think.
With you. So serious answers though. Like there's a lot of good contenders.
Yeah, my first thought, the one I told you, my initial thought was incorrect. But the first thing I thought of was like, man, custom Robo, because you can customize your Robo. I was like, wait, we're getting a new Armored Core game? So like,
Yeah, that'd be a waste. That'd be a
what
waste.
a waste.
That's why I'm not picking Pikmin as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think a good shout for this, for real for me, would be Luigi's Mansion.
Okay.
Just because I really heard nothing but good stuff about the new one. I enjoyed when I played the 3DS version, but I'd love to go back and like play the original. I think a new version of that would be cool.
Yeah, that's a great idea because that's such a like cute series, and that's I think where it all started, right?
Yeah, I think it was GameCube launch title, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I had a weird one. See, GameCube's in a weird place where like definitely you could remaster some games, but I don't think a lot of them need it. Like my first thought was Super Mario Sunshine because of the like the big 3D Mario platformers. I haven't actually played Sunshine. That was like a blind spot. And I know they came to like with the collection that you could buy. But I don't think they were like remastered. I think they were just ported.
I think so, yeah.
But see, the weird thing is like I don't think it needs a remaster. Like I think you could just sit down and play it on GameCube and it would like play just fine. But I think as far as
that's true of Metroid Prime too, though. And then the remaster is just like, wow, this is great.
That's true. But I think like there's something about like the cartoon style of Mario too that like is maybe a little bit more timeless than other games. So I like that's probably my answer. But I think another one that I would consider between is The Simpsons Hit and Run. It was like surprisingly a good game for being a like TV show tie-in game.
It was really good.
It was really good, and I would be curious. And like I think the cars handled poorly, and like I don't think it was very like good to play in terms of like how it controlled. So unlike Super Mario Sunshine, which I imagine still holds up pretty well in terms of like the game feel, I think maybe Hit and Run could do with a little bit more modernizing in terms of like how like the physicality of the game. And I'm just curious to know if it's still good.
That's a really good call. You know what? I was going to go with F-Zero GX, actually, because we were just talking about how there's been no F-Zero. Like, they could totally take that and modernize it and, you know, give us more stuff to do outside the car, all that type of thing. But now that you've mentioned Simpsons Hit and Run, like, how can I not go with that, you know? Like, that game could just be ridiculously cool in a modern context with like online and all the customization stuff you could do. And like imagine how big Springfield could be on a new console. Not that we want a huge open world, but like I imagine it was probably pretty small on the GameCube.
I mean, it felt big. I remember it feeling like pretty big, and then as you got later into the game, you like unlocked that whole new like area of the town that you couldn't originally go to, like the monorails.
That's true. Man, we should go back and play Hit and Run. Hey, that'd be so fun.
It was so. I remember loving that game. Like, not that we were even like big Simpsons fans. It was just an awesome game.
Yeah, it's funny because it's so like GTA, and then GTA like I couldn't care less.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We considered that genre. And we're like, yeah, we're good now. We got everything we needed out of The Simpsons.
I'm satisfied for life. Oh man. Well, thanks for joining us on the podcast, everybody. This has been a blast. We hope you've enjoyed as well. And for next episode, it is our big 25th episode here. We've been talking about it for a while. It will be our top 25 combined best games ever list next episode. So that's going to be fun. Kate and I will argue out which of our 25 favorite games of all time can represent both of us, which is very difficult, as we've proven before.
Yeah. And one game will win the honor of joining, I think, God of War 2018 and Bloodborne in the immortalized category of like best games of
ever.
All time.
Yeah,
perfect games.
That's right. So in the meantime, if anyone is still listening at the end of the episode here, we would love to have your favorite games of all time lists to read out on the show for next time. It could be top 25, could be top 5, top 10, whatever you want to give us. Send it in. We'd love to read it out on the show. So
100. We might not read out the whole list, but I will, in my personal time, read and critique the 100 list.
Awesome. So there you go. Please send them in if you can. We'll send out reminders before the episode as well. But we're looking forward to that. Hope you are too. And until next time, this has been Cloud Control, the gaming podcast that's not just good, it's good enough. We'll see you on the next episode.